Backlog refinement. It's sometimes called the unlisted ceremony. Why is that? Because if you look at the Scrum framework and you look at the ceremonies and the roles, you don't see backlog refinement in there. You'll see this listed on the internet when you're looking at things. Maybe you'll hear the term backlog grooming or story grooming or some kind of a grooming activity. We call it today, we call it backlog refinement. It's a little more modernized utilization of the words. And it really hits home when it talks about what you're doing. You're refining the stories down to the point where they are ready to be taken in by the delivery team to be worked on. And what do I mean by that? When you're, especially when you're early on in Scrum, when you're early on in using any kind of agile or iterative methodology, um, in trying to do your work and using stories as your key element for defining features and doing work. A lot of times those stories aren't quite ready and shouldn't go into production or go into the team for work, let alone go into production. They're just not ready. They haven't been talked about enough. There's too many unknowns. Maybe you haven't finished all the invest principles and gotten things really good on the story, or there just needs to be more conversation around it. You haven't had enough conversation around the story. Um, this event occurs every sprint, and usually it's typically broken up into twice a week type activities. When I work with teams, what I like to do is start out and say, let's do an hour session twice a week, usually like a Tuesday, Thursday, break it up a bit. And what we're doing over that time, this is a product owner owned ceremony. They run the backlog refinement sessions, and they prepare the team and get the team a little bit ahead of time, not too far in advance. Typically 5 stories, maybe 10 stories early on, that the product owner wants to focus on. And then what they're going to do in that session is we're going to talk about it. We're going to make sure that there are certain things on this story that we understand and that it is truly ready to be scheduled for a sprint planning session, and we can bring it into the next sprint or the following sprint. Sometimes you'll work 2 sprints out, usually no farther than that. um, but it's ready to go, and we can pull it in with confidence, and we can pull it in with the understanding that we really feel good that we can get this done and commit to it if we pull it in. So what do you need to have? What does a ready story look like? It's got the invest principles all working for it, like we talked about back in story writing. It's prioritized. The product owner knows where it's going to go in terms of being pulled out of the backlog, and they can talk to you about why that is. And the delivery team needs to understand this, because it's a key component to making sure that when you're creating something, you understand how it's fitting into the rest of it and seeing the whole. There's consensus around the room that yes, we agree that this thing we understand it. We understand how big it is. When you do these backlog refinement sessions, this is typically where the group is voting on as a group, and they're putting in their ideas around sizing. We talk about planning poker, and different sizing ways to size stories. This is where you're going to do that type of activity in this backlog refinement session. You're working on the next set of stories. Again, the next sprint. So if I'm in sprint 6, I'm working on stories that are going to be eligible for sprint 7, possibly sprint 8. It's not bad to have 2 sprints worth of material ready to go, because if you need to pivot or something, you find out you can't do something, you can pull something else in. Going farther out than that is probably wasteful in terms of you're prepping things that you're not sure are going to be the next thing that you want to take in. But eventually you'll get to it. And if you're staying a sprint to 2 sprints out, typically 2 sprints is where you want to be. If you've got enough of a backlog put together that's ready to go, then you're in really good shape. Who attends this? You've got the delivery team, you've got the Scrum Master, you've got the product owner. Everybody's there. The right minds and the right talent to make sure that the stories that are being brought in are that you have the right skill sets and the right mindsets talking about that story to make sure that priority is correct, that you understand all the ways to test these things, you understand what it's going to take in terms of effort to deliver it or to build it, and any other aspects to whatever that story is. So typically it's the entire delivery team, Scrum Master, and the product owner. Again, the product owner is running this ceremony. Like I said, I like to have my teams usually do a 1-hour session twice a week, typically sometime in the afternoon is a nice way to do it. And then this allows, and this is how you can have effective and efficient open and closing ceremonies. We're going to talk about that at the end of the Scrum session here today. But how you can actually make it happen as quickly as it does is in part because of this ceremony, is because the stories are ready. We understand everything about them. And really, we're just checking off to say, yep, 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 we're good to go. Yes, we're good to go. Okay, go. It makes for very effective and efficient open or close and open ceremonies for each session.